Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Luke from Guild Umbra. Getting down to the last few videos in this series that I can make as far as overview of the classes. So it's not that I'm getting excited about not doing the videos anymore. It's just running out of ideas. I've got a few off the top of my head, but that's not the purpose of this video. Just giving you an update. Still doing real good in Guild Umbra. Real super excited about launch, early start coming up soon. So if you haven't pre-ordered, you might want to do it if you want that early access. Starts May 31st, which is less than 2 weeks from now. So in those 2 weeks, or more like 10 days that I have left, I'm going to probably grind out the last remaining videos in my overview of each one of the classes. So anyway, the purpose of this video is to talk about the Spellslinger. That's the next class I'm jumping into, and that's why you're here in the first place. So Spellslinger, stat and priorities, DPS, that's what we're going to focus on in this video. I got my smokes, I got my sweet tea, let's do this. First primary stat for the Spellslinger DPS is Finesse, because it gives you all assault power. The next stat priority is Moxie, because it gives you critical hit and critical severity rating. Followed next by Brutality, which gives you strike through, and it gives you crit severity rating. The next stat would be Grit, because it's health. It gives us base health to our character. So you can, I guess you could throw in deflect rating as being the last thing you would ever focus on. You know, as a DPS, you're not really concerned about this because you're not tanking mobs, hopefully. Well, there's a few Spellslingers in my guild that do, but, you know, that's beside the point, and I won't mention any names. But anyway, that covers our primary stats. So for secondary stats usually scale better than primary stats. And I've had this discussion with several guildies, trying to get them to understand that, you know, if you get a piece of gear with secondary stats that are better than your primary stats, take it, okay? And the reason for this is because the secondary stats not only scale better, but here's proof of it, okay? For every one finesse, and this goes gradually lower as you move up and get more finesse, one finesse gives you 0.61 assault power, okay, out the gate. Whereas if you had secondary stats, say on a weapon, because that's usually where you see the assault power, that are larger than the weapon that you currently have equipped, then you would obviously go with the weapon that has more secondary stats. Okay? Now there is a if statement in there with this, and that is the only reason you would stick with the piece of gear that has the primary stats, or excuse me, that even though the piece of gear that you're looking at has better secondary stats than your primary stats, the only way you'd stick with the one that has less secondary stats is if by going to the secondary stats and by equipping that weapon, you lose milestones. Milestones are areas in your, as you level up, you receive stat increases. But you also, as you equip gear and change your gear around, you reach points in your level, I guess, of finesse where you'll reach milestones, which give more assault power. So that would be the one exception that I could see where you wouldn't take the piece of gear with the secondary stats, because you lose more secondary stats as a result of losing a little bit more of your primary stats and therefore losing a milestone. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope I explained that. I'm sure you guys will tell me if I didn't. But anyway, got on a tangent there. Secondary stats. Secondary stats will always, number one, will always be assault power. Okay? The next stat will be critical hit chance, followed closely by strike through chance, then critical hit severity, and then max health. And don't even worry about these deflect chance and deflect critical hit chance, because you're not taking mobs, hopefully. No, okay. One thing to note, in my past videos I've said 12% strike through is where you want to be at before you go into raids. Now that includes the amps that you get as in your amp tree. Okay, so 12 minus 3% amps on your strike through, 3% strike through, will give you 9. So you need to be at or around, unless you're lucky, like certain classes are, to have other amps that give more strike through. Right around 8, I would say, would be a safe place to be. 8%. So and so you'd have to switch around some stats, okay? Because strike through is, like it says here, this reduces the chance foes have to deflect your attacks. Okay, and so it's more important to shift things out of critical hit chance and critical hit severity, and even max health for that matter, if you can, to strike through. When you're looking at gear, and this is totally in game, this is not more or less around the 30 range, you might want to start looking, level 30ish, I'd say, looking into getting more strike through on your gear. Because before that, you probably won't even see it unless you craft it yourself, or you have one of your guild mates craft the gear for you. You know, that have that tier of uncommon chips that they can change to strike through. Okay. So anyway, just some FYI. In summary, you go finesse first for your primary stats, moxie second, brutality third, and then grit fourth. Secondary stats, you go assault power first, you go critical hit chance second, you go strike through third, critical hit severity fourth, base health fifth, and your secondary stats. This concludes the Spellslinger DPS stat priority. I hope you enjoyed the video. Looking forward to the next few minutes jumping into some builds. Possibly. I might do more of an overview, as I've done more healing with the Spellslinger than actual DPS. So we'll see. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time as we dive into more Spellslinger fun stuff. Thank you. Have a good night.